14th of September 2024 at 1:02 p.m. here on Harstein Island, Washington, United States of America. Welcome once again to our Cosmic Journey, the Dev and Design podcast chronicling how two people made the world's best astrology software, despite all odds, as it turns out. I'm the designer, Jake. He's the engineer, Trey. Hello, Trey.
Hello, Jake. I appreciate two things about your intro. One is that we weren't dum-dums, and
Nope.
two, that you are still leaning into the manifesting the future through stating it as a past.
Exactly. The third thing that I'm very excited about this episode is that I've got a pile of clothes right here that have not been folded, so that's great. Nothing. That's the. I would say that this represents the energy that we're manifesting right now. Unfolded pile of clothing.
Yeah, but we are folding that pile. Like it is.
I mean,
the pile
one day.
is getting folded.
Today's episode is called The Good Astro Flow, or maybe That Good Astro Flow. We'll see how it takes. Trey's going to do the check-in. I will do a design demo showing the navigation flow. That is the titular name for the episode. Trey is going to talk through the model once again. And I'll say, emotionally speaking, I feel like we are in a bit of a... Well, we can talk about this during the check-in, but like it's a little bit like we are struggling through our path to get to a beta here, and so you might start feeling a little bit of the struggle bus today. Hopefully it doesn't come across as horribly negative, but who knows.
Yeah, no, I feel good. I feel really good about it. I think that we are dealing with some, and we'll dig into this later, but we're basically like cleaning out some of the skeletons in the closet from just the fact that we had to learn as we were going on a number of different levels. And so but exactly. We're now like and in this process of like honing in for M1, and it's very exciting, but it's also like at least the last couple of cycles have really been sort of down in the weeds of like the plumbing of the cosmic plumbing.
As it turns out. M1 stands for milestone 1. That's our closed beta. That's what we're moving towards. And now that things are getting a little bit more real, as Trey has mentioned, things, you have to make big decisions. And I think we are feeling the impact of our prior selves, our past selves, onto today. Trey was learning a new platform with Elixir Phoenix. I was learning a new design methodology with OOUX while also learning astrology. And all of that learning comes with pain. And that pain has come a little bit to a head here. Not to be too dramatic about it, but life is pain. That's what I would say about that.
Also, we have to do the check-in question before we can like really dig into this topic.
Hey, it sounds like I'm already emotionally checked in, but let's go to the check-in question then, Mr. Henry. It's to you.
Okay, so in my favorite, and I think many would argue the best, Nightmare on Elm Street movie, Dream Warriors, published in 1987. The basic premise is that one of the children is sort of psychically gifted to bring other people into her dream when Freddy Krueger is like trying to attack her in her sleep, and all of the Nancy was her name. All of the kids that are that she brings into these dreams, they all have sort of like superpowers in the dream. In Nancy's dream, when she pulls you in to fight against Freddy Krueger, what are your dream superpowers?
I think I'm fighting Freddy Krueger with my ability to sarcastically tear someone down, and that is the superpower where Freddy Krueger is so taken aback by the passive aggressive nature of my attacks that he has fallen, and there's no way that he can kill someone because he sees how emotionally unavailable this superhero is. And there's no way, if I can't even get through the emotional core of this person, how could I get through the physical core? This is the universe that I'm painting for my Nightmare on Elm Street. What about you? What do you think?
I love that, because there's a lot of really good writing opportunity there too, because Freddy Krueger is known for the one-liners, and so it's like almost like a dueling of the one-liners, in your episode of
exactly. It's like it's like a full-on battle, like a full-on horror battle, except with your words. So like life, so like Twitter, as it turns out. That's what it is. What about you? What is your superpower?
Yeah, so I think mine is just that I join him. Like I'm like, no, Freddy Krueger's like super rad and like all of this like
You're
magical
like, you
dream
can't
power
beat
stuff.
him.
Like I want it all the time. Yeah, exactly. If you can't beat him, join him. I mean, he keeps coming back, he keeps coming back. So yeah, I'm gonna be like Freddy Krueger's acolyte. I'm gonna be like, all right, how does all this like dream infestation stuff work?
Yeah.
Also, I need like probably like some my own little like blade hand claw thing. Something.
Yeah. You can make it out of like butter knives. You can be like, I'm just like you, Freddy Krueger. And Freddy Krueger's like, oh, I love that. Um, we have a friend who is allergic to everything. Kind of, he would describe himself as a feeble type of person. We have talked with him about the zombie apocalypse, and he has made very clear that he is going to give himself to the zombie apocalypse as quickly as possible to become the most alpha zombie that he can, because he would like to have that superpower. I feel like you're in that kind of that realm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I love it. Good check-in,
Cool.
everybody. Good check-in.
All right. Now that we're emotionally checked in, we can
Yeah,
discuss our emotions about the last 2 weeks.
exactly. Well, I feel much better about all of that. Trey and I have been on a journey to figure out what we're going to ship in this closed beta, what we call M1, which stands for Milestone 1. And through that, we have started creating more like assets. I don't know how to describe it. Like more kind of like design assets to communicate with each other, and now to communicate with you what we're going to ship and what we're not going to ship. And what I wanted to show now is, if I do the right thing here, a nav flow. And what this nav flow will show you is what is in for M1, what we're going to say is in for future milestones, M2, M3, and so on, and kind of how, not kind of, but actually how someone will flow through the system and how it's going to look. And what you're seeing here is the nav flow. So this is going to look a little bit different than what a typical nav flow or a sitemap would look like. This is showing the objects and the embedded objects or the nested objects and how these things connect together and how they flow together. You'll see these big gray boxes over here. These are things that you probably can't read this, but this little thing here says M2. And if I've done my job right, I've zoomed in on that corner for you. You'll see that there's a couple other gray boxes here. Here's an M2 box, here's an M2 box. But the idea here is that you go from a home page, you sign up, you give some details, you create an account, and you go to a My Charts page with lots of different charts. You can click into those charts. Charts have rings, rings have events, events may have natives. Natives won't be part of this, but you can see the complexity of the model, the data model that we have created here, where we've got charts to rings, to events, to natives. Those things are controlled by a perspective. If you've got multiple rings, you'll have multiple perspectives. And we have this thing that's called the controlling chart perspective. This is yet another thing that we had to create this week, which I think Trey is going to talk about. But I think the more exciting thing, and the thing that feels different from other astrology software, is everything down this way, or, if I point it the correct way, down this way, where instead of it just being about natal astrology, which is interesting, it's about electional astrology, which is much, much harder. And what Trey had done a very good job with his prior product, Urania, in delivering. When a member comes in here and they choose their discipline could be natal astrology, or it could be electional astrology. And this is where we're going to go here. And you can do different types of elections. I have a list here. These will probably not be all ready for M1, but you can imagine that some of these will be here. Choosing by planet, choosing by lunar mansion, fixed star, maybe deacon. I have sign as well over here. And then when you go through and you say, here's what I care about, here's what I don't care about, we will hopefully, Trey and I haven't had a discussion about this, but we will hopefully start weighting these considerations, choosing a bunch of events for you. And these events, which would meet the brief on what would work for you for this electional astrology moment. There's all of these moments here. Some moments have greater potential than others, but we would kind of sort by potential, and you would be able to interact with it. What this UI looks like, I'm not exactly sure, I'm excited to actually do that UI. I'm excited to get the rest of this done for a closed beta for M1. Mr. Henry, anything you would like to add to that? Anything? Are you horrified by what I've just shown?
Well, I've already seen it, so no.
Okay, great.
But also, I think we might have talked about in the last episode, doing sort of primary research interviews. Um, and one of the things that an electional astrologer that we talked to mentioned, or kind of like one of the things that they said sort of like right out of the gate was, they were showing us all of the different tools that they use. And I do electional astrology as well. And I also have my sort of shelf of tools. And one of the things that they said was like, if I had one thing to rule them all, like that is sort of my ideal scenario.
Yeah.
And that's really what we're targeting. And so the stuff that Jake is showing there with the flow is not actually detailing out like how all of those pieces are going to work. It's kind of just like from an information architecture kind of perspective, how are you going to go from like step to step to step. And so I'm really excited about it. I think there's just going to be like a ton of really cool stuff that we're going to be able to accomplish there, but I think it's going to take a little bit of time to get that stuff. It's definitely not going to, whatever we have in M1 is definitely going to be different than what we have at release. And that's just sort of the nature of the beast.
Yeah. One thing that I'll
Yeah.
say, when I look at this, I think to myself, boy, we spent a long time. Like we're on our 51st episode here. So we've done 51 weeks. And you're like, you've only done this in 51 weeks. And that's unfair because, like I said, Trey's learning a new platform. I was learning a new design methodology. I was learning astrology during that time. Those sound like excuses, but giving the time and space to actually learn and to experiment and to fail and to learn from those failures that's the whole point in this whole life. And if what we were doing was just manufacturing something from a half-baked concept into people's hands, we would create something that we weren't very proud of, and that doesn't meet our standard for what we want to put into this world. And that's hard for a lot of people to handle, especially when we start talking to our other business friends that say, what did one of our business friends say to us? This was several weeks ago. He asked, are we in a shipping mindset or something like that? And that is a really dangerous thing to ask, right? A shipping mindset means, are you motivated to get things done? But also could mean, are you cutting corners and skipping things just for the purposes of getting things out the door? There's no reason to get something out the door if no one loves it. And I don't want to put my name on it. And that's just the kind of company that we want to build.
A couple of thoughts on that too, that like what you're showing is actually the culmination of all of that work, right? Like it's the what comes out the other end of a lot of work might look like it's not a ton of work, but it does actually encompass, like you wouldn't be able to get there unless you spent all of that time getting there, right? Like
Yeah.
It's sort of the famous, I forget, I think it's attributed to like several different artists, but I think I heard it as like Dali is like sitting at a bar or something and like draws on the napkin, and then the lady's like, oh, can I have this napkin? And he's like, yeah, sure, for like $20,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she's like, what, it took you like 5 minutes to draw that? And he's like, no ma'am, that took me 30 years to draw.
Exactly.
It's the like Jake was saying, the amount of time that we spent learning all of this stuff like is folded into it as well. So I was learning a new platform, like Jake said. Jake was spinning up both on astrology and OOUX at the same time, which is kind of also insane. But yeah, so and from the to segue this into what I was going to show, it was also true on the platform side that there was a couple of things that I think we made some assumptions early on about how the OOUX like noun foraging and how objects are defined in OOUX and stuff like that would kind of almost like in a one-to-one way directly map to how we would model the data for Cosmic. And that's actually not true. And this is something that I think we're probably going to end up talking about more maybe with the like OOUX community, is kind of like how design and development work at the same time in sort of like the OOUX paradigm. I think we've learned a lot of things along the way for this. Now that I know more about the platform and how to actually work within it, I'm cleaning out a lot of stuff that just had already kind of become crafty, even though we're like a pre-release product. Like we had already sort of like ended up with some kind of bad assumptions and kind of crufty things in there, even though we were really trying all along the way to not do that. And so part of this is kind of like really focusing in and narrowing in on M1. So I'm showing like a revised data model here, which for those who have been playing along is a much more simplified model. So all of this stuff in purple we have is all chart and chart relationship type stuff. There's a number of deltas here between what we were doing before and what this represents, and I won't go into a ton of detail here, but it will support, this still supports all of the things that we want to do for M1 and beyond. It's just much more streamlined. There's also our perspective breakdown, which has also been more streamlined and simplified. And this is actually most of the tables in the system. So we're missing or not missing, but there's a bunch of stuff that's been taken out, like Jake was showing in the user flow. Their like native is no longer a thing, and all of the native related stuff. We're not shipping that in M1, and so we're not putting it in the product yet because it's not actually fully understood how it's going to manifest and how it's going to fit in. Like we know some parts of it, but until we actually get to the implementing of it, we're not really going to know. And so it makes no sense to try to like go out the door in M1 with a bunch of stuff that isn't being used. So anyway, we're kind of like narrowing and reshaping this stuff down. So it's been really cathartic for me. I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, I've been enjoying it too. Like just the process that you and I have been going through to like figure out what we're actually going to ship. And look at us. We have moved through many, many tools, but both Trey and I are on Whimsical right now. Good. Thank you to the Whimsical team for making such a lovely product for that. More to come as we get closer to this beta. I do feel like we have, to use the plumbing metaphor, unblocked ourselves in some fundamental ways. I feel free flowing coming very soon. We have a nav flow coming. So I'm feeling pretty good about it.
It really falls under the umbrella of, sort of getting it right as much as we can out of the gate. And OOUX has done such a great job of, I wouldn't feel confident at all in going with this like super streamlined model if it weren't for the fact that I felt confident about us
where we
thinking
were going to
through
go,
the stuff that's coming.
Exactly.
And so because we know where we're going, I feel more confident in being able to say like, okay, I know how that stuff is going to slot in when we get there, but for right now, we don't need it. And so it doesn't have to be in there.
Yeah.
It's good.
Me too. I'm feeling great about it. So on this autumnal day here in the Pacific Northwest, where slugs are abound throughout our beautiful garden, what should the viewer do with themselves today?
They should sharpen their kitchen knives. You have some kitchen knives that are dull. Viewer,
Look at these.
I know you do because everybody has.
They're crap. They're horrible. These knives right here.
No, ours are great. Ours are fine.
Ours are great. They're not terrible at all. They're doing great.
Yeah, sharpen your knives. It sucks to like try to prepare food with the dull knife.
Yeah, don't ever prepare food with a dull knife. You would think that a dull knife would not cut you, would be less likely to cut you. As it turns out, a dull knife will cut you much more easily. So sharpen those knives. Be well, take care, have yourself a lovely Saturday or whatever day you watch this episode. We'll see you again very soon. Take care of yourself. Goodbye.